Oh, dang it. Those jerks stole all my lunch money, also making fun of my family's poor socioeconomic situation that this capitalist and corporate government has forced us into for the benefit of the wealthiest in our great yet flawed society. Oh, what am I gonna do now? Man, I'm hungry.
Hello, my boy. May I sit down?
Sure.
While I'm sitting down, you also sit down. Why is that?
Some dumb my lunch money, stapled my eye, and made fun of my family's poor socioeconomic state. Now I'm hungry and sad, rather than just hungry like before.
Well, son, I got an idea. Why don't we share this sandwich?
But that's your sandwich. You paid for the materials and used your capital and effort to create that piece of utter goodness. Why would you give it to me?
Well, my boy, in my eyes, this isn't my sandwich. It is our sandwich.
Wow, that's an interesting and seemingly out-of-place ideology within this free nation. What would this idea be called?
My boy, it is called communism.
Wow, that sounds like a great idea. The entirety of a population sharing everything. That would really help me and many others out of the economic pit that these capitalists and elitists have forced us into.
Yes, my ideology is meant to bring economic equality for all people, using the state to enforce and distribute wealth as the people need it.
Oh, I just realized I forgot to ask for your name.
Oh, no worry about that, young boy. My name is Karl Marx. And what is your name?
You.
Me?
No, you. My name is you, like the letter.
Ho 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 ho. My apologies. That is quite a confusing name.
So, Mr. Carl, could you please elaborate upon this exquisite economic idea you have concocted?
Well, my boy, I originally got the idea from an important event known as the French Revolution. A time in which people revolted against their ruler and the system of oppression. I focused my thesis on one specific point in the revolution, one in which people dictated their own fate.
Oh, do you mean that French Revolution? I know what you're talking about. It saw the beginning of a collectivist mode of government that ultimately failed horrifically, although the more temperate elements of which were instrumental to the genesis of your thesis and ideology known as communism, now known as Marxism, due to the exploitation your ideas underwent with leaders such as Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, and Mao Zedong.
My boy, you sure know a lot. But why do you want me to explain my theology?
Well, it would be better to hear it described from the person who came up with it.
And where did you learn all of this information? Did you read my Communist Manifesto?
No, I saw it on YouTube. Somebody made a summary of it.
Okay.
It's a place where people can share things with each other. I'll explain it later.
My apologies. I've lost my train of thought. You know the origins of Marxism and how close it was to occurring until that fiend Maximilian Robespierre took over and destroyed it. My intention with my book, called the Communist Manifesto, was to give the guidelines to follow and to return society to a place of economic equality.
Oh, and was the French Revolution the only catalyst to your mind conceiving the first true, full, hypothetical collectivist governmental and economic system?
No. In fact, the revolution was only the concept and the basis of my theory. The true catalyst to this idea was another revolution, although this one was much less violent. It is called the Industrial Revolution, and its happenings seemingly led to our generation's economic society.
So, you wanted to counter capitalism and corruption with this more equal economic and political system and encourage people to revolt and return to this time of equality and prosperity?
If that is what you call the system, then not particularly. I never wanted or promoted any form of revolution or protest. I simply saw that the public was oppressed and knew that eventually a revolution would strike. I never once altered an institution, simply a warning and a guideline to abide by for a successful society.
Huh. This is sure a lot different to how it was actually implemented. Interesting. But what about the Industrial Revolution made you think back to the French Revolution collectivist ideologies?
Well, my boy, there are two real classes of people in that time period, known as the workers, or the patriots, and the rich producers, or the bourgeoisie. The proletarians were the workers in the factories, and they didn't make enough money to afford anything, but maybe a meal. This was happening while the bourgeoisie were living in excess luxury, without working at all, but maybe hiring a few new slaves to the corrupt system they were exploiting.
Oh no, that's terrible.
It was, and is what inspired me to write a piece of hope for the exploited, and a warning to the rich of what to come if their workers continued to be nothing but cogs to the machine, to one day be replaced when their use has run dry.
Wow, that's an interesting origin to your work, but I still only have a very surface level understanding of Marxism. Would you mind getting into some specifics?
Of course, my boy, it's been an age since I've spoken about my work. Then again, it may be because my time was more than a century ago. What would you like to know?
What are your views on the class divide?
Well, the class divide of wealth is precisely what will cause the inevitable revolution to Marxism. Because oppressed, hungry, and angry people will eventually revolt and even the playing field for themselves. Because the poor are more numerous than the rich.
Oh, that's right, but what will happen when the upper classes, or to the upper classes after this change in system?
Well, once the change occurs, there won't be an upper class, or any classes at all.
But how? Won't there always be people with more wealth than others?
Well, the way that would happen is that nobody would own anything.
And how would that work?
Everything that is considered your property would become everybody's property. Through the medium of the state, this essentially means the state owns everything, but everything would be shared amongst the people.
Okay, so the children's phrase, sharing is caring, is of great import to the system.
Correct! And with this system of lacking ownership, it would force equality onto all, and all people's efforts, both formerly rich and poor, would all contribute to the good of all. All people would be given what they could and what they need.
Wow, that really is a novel idea. Nobody would have to work long hours and only be home for Friday like my dad.
Precisely. Everyone would contribute to the good of all, including fair working hours for all, meaning more for those exploiting capitalism and less for those who contribute to the society they live in. And with this, the government would wither away, as more people would realize they serve no purpose, and the people can govern themselves, seeing as everyone would be working for the best interests of society.
Wow, I wish people were more like that now. People are just greedy and hoard the economically profitable means of production, creating what we call a monopoly, where one company and person controls an entire section of the market, giving them complete control and allowing them to be very greedy.
Well, that's why those are shared among the people as well. We simply give the means of production to different people. Therefore, nobody can exploit it and return it to the unsustainable system of capitalism. I made sure nothing could bring back a time that made me conceive Marxism.
Okay, that makes sense, but all throughout history we have worked on an individualist and elitist system. Wouldn't this sudden shift to a highly collectivist ideology be quite jarring for the general public, possibly causing even more unrest than the revolt that would bring Marxism to fruition to begin with?
Young you, in my eyes, History has done nothing but has been nothing but a large class struggle where the disadvantaged fight for equality and ultimately never get it. I believe that this ideology could be the solution, or at least the catalyst to solving the seemingly ceaseless torment from the working class.
Wow, so you want your work to be a large shift in history, like the Renaissance or the aforementioned Industrial Revolution? Something that changes human nature and interaction on a worldwide scale?
To a certain degree, yes. Though I do not wish to be thought of as any higher than any other man, as all of us should. And I also believe, eventually, everyone will be treated equally, be it in a classist society I strive for, or in the destruction of humanity will fall into if the lower classes continue to be oppressed.
Well, that is certainly an apt interpretation on the current trajectory humanity is headed towards, that being its own destruction. Often said conflict is caused by those who use communism for complete political control, as I mentioned earlier.
Oh yes, I do remember you mentioning those fellows before, whom you said exploited my ideology. That Josephine Stalin and Mr. Tang. Would you mind describing what they did and how exactly they tarnished my name? If possible, I'd like to edit my manifesto to possibly prevent such an uptake of power.
Well, that might be a bit difficult to write, let alone enforce, seeing as these revolutions often resulted in death, and in many cases more oppression than the capitalist and imperialist system they sought to replace and fix.
Lay it on me, young one. I can tell this will be difficult, but I need to hear what has been done to my work.
Okay, well...
11 minutes later.
This is what my legacy is. A failed catalyst to a utopia, only to create the most world tension and dystopian society, using my teachings to make the people even more oppressed. I am truly sorry, Jew, and everyone my book has harmed. I only intended for good to come from this.
Well, it's not all bad. Your teachings and writings are likely the reason people in capitalist societies are much more equal and fairly treated than back in your time. Now there's minimum wages and safety standards. You were the true birth of collectivism and the main reason why the entire left half of the political spectrum exists. Without your communist manifesto, the entire world would be so much different and likely worse.
Young one. For such a young child.
Hey, I may be small, but I'll have you know, I am a whole 8 years old. Don't you call me young, you boomer.
My apology. But for your age, you are quite socially and intellectually competent. So I thank you for allowing me to share my ideas once more, and for sharing what my work has done to the world. I must be off now. Goodbye, young you. I see a bright future ahead of you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, Mr. Marx. Have a good time in the afterlife. Wait, was I talking to a ghost? Man, I'm hungry again.